Hello, I'm Katie and this is Stepmum Space, the judgment-free zone where we talk candidly about the fairy tales and scary tales of stepmum life. So whether you've been a stepmum for years, you're just starting out, or you want to understand the stepmum in your life a little bit better, this is the place for you. You can find plenty more support and ways of connecting with other stepmums on the website www.stepmumspace.com. Now, my guest today is Ray. Ray got in touch with me to ask if I was able to share any episodes of the podcast which focused on being a stepmum to a neurodiverse child. And I didn't have anywhere to point her. So she courageously offered to share her story. Let's get into it. Welcome, Ray. I think you are our first Kiwi stepmum, so very exciting to have
Yay!
you on the show. Although a little bit strange because you've got a lovely glass of red wine and I've got my morning cup of tea beside me.
Yeah, sorry about that. I did think about that at the time and thought, but it's been a really long day.
There's no judgment here from me. Anyway, I'm really looking forward to talking to you. So you enjoy your wine, kick back. You people who are listening there, whether you've got a cup of tea, a glass of wine, a can of Coke, whatever, hope you enjoy the conversation. So Ray, why don't you kick off by telling us a little bit about your family?
Yes, my husband and I have been married for almost a year. So we got married in October last year. We've been together for about 5 years, I think. We have 3 children. They're all his. I don't have any children myself, all boys, and it is a crazy family. So my oldest stepson is preteen and he is also neurodiverse. And then we have twin stepsons and they are complete opposites of each other. They're not identical and they could be more different, really. So yeah, we also are a house full of animals. Like, it's just crazy. It is absolutely bonkers. The boys are actually split between their bio-mum's house, which is not very far from us, and our house. So this week we happen to have our twins, and then on the next week we'll go back to the oldest stepson, and then we just swap. So every second Friday we get the night off. And then obviously on the other week we have all 3 of them. So it is busy all the time.
Yeah. So I'm just trying to follow that. So am I right in thinking that you have the eldest one by himself and then the twins by themselves and they switch like that with their mum?
Yeah. So he was diagnosed with autism and ADHD probably about a year into me being with my husband. And it's a lot. We are trying as a family to support him as he learns how to cope with the strategies of life that he'll need, because, his thinking is so different to us. His needs are so much different to the twins. So we split them across the 2 houses. My husband and the kids' bio-mum got a professional opinion, and the doctor at the time, knowing the situation that we're close by, suggested that this be an arrangement. And so this is what we've done for the last 3-4 years, right through COVID.
And how old are the twins?
They are about to turn 10. So they are really active, making their own, growing their own personalities. And I came into their lives when, they were just starting school. So that it's been a real journey to get to know them and grow with them.
How was it when you first met your husband and he had these 3 small boys?
Oh my God. I was so naive, I have to say. Like, I was trying to think about, for this podcast, what I was prepared for, but I don't think I was prepared at all. And I've listened to so many of your podcasts, and I think there are so many women possibly in the same boat as me, just completely oblivious. So my husband and I met on Tinder, and I swiped and I thought, he looks really cute. And so swiped, and in the beginning it was never meant to be, it wasn't meant to be anything but just people hanging out. It wasn't going to be serious. And then a couple of months into it, we were going on a date, and he said to me, I actually, I don't want to see anyone else. And I was like, oh, this is really cool. And, I knew he had children at that point, but I never really thought about what it would be like to be a stepmom. And so I actually met the rest of his family first. His parents had a wedding anniversary, a significant wedding anniversary. And so he said to them, is it okay if I bring this person? And they were shocked, like, because his marriage had only really ended a couple of months before, officially ended a couple of months before we met. And so they were shocked that my husband was bringing this new person. And then all of a sudden, I met them first, and then I met 50 relatives. And of course, I haven't met the boys at that point. So it was this bizarre, like, what on earth is going on for me? And then a couple of months after that, he said to his ex, the kid's mum, I'd like my partner to meet the boys. And so she actually wanted to meet me first.
How did you feel about that?
It was really hard. I understand, like, I completely understand. If it was me in her position, this person's coming into her kids' lives, and I get it. It was just, I don't think I prepared myself enough. I work in comms, so I had all the key messages in the world for every question. And it's funny because when I look back, there were questions that she asked that I knew she'd ask those questions, like, do you plan on having children or things like that? But the one thing that has stuck in my head, which has actually been probably the hardest thing for me one of the hardest things for me as a stepmom, is she actually said to me, I don't mind if my ex meets someone else, but if that person comes into my kids' lives, I want that person to love my kids as much as I do. And at the time, I was so naive. Like, when I say I'm naive about it, I was like, yeah, I can totally do that. I'm a very competitive person. So when I say I want to do something, when I say I want to win, I want to win. So I was just like, I can totally love them that much. Like, that's just what I'm going to do. And then initially I was like, okay, well, the way I'm going to love them is just to pour all of myself into this, relationship, to build whatever my relationship is going to look like with each of them.
I'm surprised, because I have obviously heard lots of stories where the ex wants to meet the stepmom, but it's usually for a kind of more casual coffee. But she was asking you, do you plan on having kids of your own? That's such a personal question. It's interesting that she said, oh, I want the person that my ex meets to love the kids as much as I do. So a lot of the time we hear that bio mums are quite threatened by a stepmom coming in, but it sounds like she was really wanting you to be almost that third parent figure. Did it feel like that?
If I'm absolutely honest, no. She made a comment to, gosh, I hope she doesn't listen to this. She made a comment to my husband after we met and said, "You're dating another version of me," and that was actually. It just, what us females do, we're built on emotion. So when we hear these comments, it kind of just layers on top of, all these emotions that we've already got. It's an emotionally challenged situation to begin with. I was just like, oh, but this is his ex-wife. So how am I like her? Because then maybe he's not going to like me. And then, well, I've also got to love the children as much as she does. So, okay, I've got this expectation put on me. So it didn't feel, I can see where you're coming from, how it was almost like she wanted it, but it didn't feel like that at the time. It was really hard.
That's a massive expectation to put on somebody, particularly when, yes, you were serious enough that you were going to meet the kids, but you didn't necessarily know it was forever, ever at that point. I mean, I can imagine that being a lot.
Yeah, I didn't realize that at the time the impact that it would have on me. So we've had many a tough time, especially with, sorry, my voice is a bit shaky now because it's quite emotional.
It's okay.
We've had many a tough time with especially my neurodiverse stepson. And in those moments, that's when these thoughts and feelings and emotions flood back, because all you can think is, I just want to leave right now. But you feel this obligation that you've signed up to this. You know what you've signed up for, but then all these other thoughts and things that have been said come up. So it's a real, probably sound a bit all over the place. It's made life really hard. It's probably in the last year where I've actually realised it's actually not possible for a stepmom to love their stepchild in the same way as a bio mum does. I've had so many conversations with my husband and said, I don't have that intrinsic connection to love the boys like you or their mum does. So when I get frustrated, it's frustrated looking at another human going, well, you should be doing this. You should be using your knife and fork to eat your dinner. Because I just haven't had the day one onward stuff.
And the thing is, you could say, oh, well, I knew what I signed up for. But, I'm thinking about all these situations where people leave an unhappy marriage. You get married signing up to it forever. Like, I've never met anybody who's divorced who says, well, I knew I'd get divorced. You sign up thinking it's forever, but you don't know what's going to happen. Like, you don't know how you might change. You don't know what the other person might do that might make it impossible for you to remain in that marriage. So it's like in no other situation in the world, apart from stepmumming, that people go, well, you knew what you signed up to. Like, everywhere else, people understand things change and you go in with your best intention and give it your all, but you don't know. And especially adding on the complexity of neurodiversity, and also that pressure being put on you right off the bat of, I want you to love the kids as your own. Like, I can imagine that soundbite coming back in your head and being quite difficult to manage, really.
It was funny. I was recommended a book a couple of years ago called Stepmonster. I'm sure that lots of mums,
it's my favorite.
Out there have read it. Oh, I love it so much. I read the first chapter and burst into tears. My husband comes in and he's like, what is going on? And I said, this is my life.
Yeah.
Because it felt like someone actually understood exactly what I was going through, but no one around me had any clue. I've got friends who have got children, but it's just such a different world when you've got this added expectation and challenges. And when you go to go and do school pickup and you're looking at all the mums and you're like, oh God, am I the third wheel? Are they looking at me weirdly? It's just, being a stepmom is so, so different.
Okay, so you've met Biomum. How did you walk away from that meeting feeling?
Completely flabbergasted, probably shell-shocked, because it's not the sort of normal situation that you go into. You're not just going to have coffee with a friend. We had an hour and a half lunch, and I got back to my office and I just sat there like, whew, it's kind of like being in a job interview.
Yeah.
But at the end of it, it's your life that will change. It's not, will I get this job or not? And I couldn't articulate to my husband exactly what had gone on, because you're still processing it.
So it was just the two of you? I thought your husband was there too.
No. In hindsight, it would have been a very different conversation had he been there. But it is what it is. And it's funny, like when you think about, like when I think about the comments of, you're just another version, like, you're just adding another version of me. It's like, but I just can't see it, but it is what it is. I've unpicked it so many times in my brain over the last 5 years, but I think we're very different people. We might look a little bit alike.
But that's as far as it goes, right?
Yeah.
It's funny, isn't it? I've spoken to some stepmoms who are like, me and the ex have actually got quite a lot in common. We're quite similar. And then I speak to lots who are like, we're poles apart. So I guess so much must depend on why your marriage breaks up, what the issues are. And in any way, it's regardless of who the person is, you're like, no, I'm my own person.
Yeah, totally. And it almost it made me almost want to be 150% the version of me. I'm a very extroverted person, so it was like I had to go on overdrive for a period of time just to kind of be myself, which is not how it should be. You should just be who you are and never think about being like somebody else. But that's what's played out for me.
Sometimes that stepmom role does, and a lot of the women I work with in coaching will say it does put them into a really competitive position. Like, I've never experienced that personally on either side, actually, but I hear it a lot. Like people who don't want to be in a competition suddenly feel like they're pushed into it, and it can be really difficult. So what happened after you'd met the ex? How did things move forward with you and the boys?
So I met my oldest stepson first, and we hit it off straight away. We'd go for walks. He loves animals, so I have a dog, so he got to know my dog, and we just we just built. I certainly built a relationship with him quicker than with the other two. The other two were obviously a lot younger, and sorry if you can hear a noise, there's a plane going past. um, we would go for walks together. We would go just adventure. We'd go rock pooling and just stuff that little boys want to go and hang out and do. He was very into the specific sea creatures, so he would talk to me all about them. And at the time, I didn't realize that was his autism at play. We got to know each other. I was Dad's friend, but that grew over time. And after a few months, we went on a summer holiday as a family, and that was where I first kind of had this moment of, oh, okay, this is going to be what my life will be like. You know, getting up, making breakfast for a cast of thousands, and trying to figure out everything that all the kids like.
Yeah, and going from kind of having no bio kids to suddenly having 3 bio kids, and girls or boys, everything's tricky. But my experience of having parented both genders is that little boys are a bit more physically demanding than little girls.
Yeah. So the boys are all really active. And so it was just trying to think about things that they would want to do, and, you know, getting to know them. And my hobbies are not hobbies that they were initially into. So, you know, we'd go for lots of bushwalks, or we'd go to the zoo, or I love going out for coffee. So I would, you know, take them out for a hot chocolate and just try and get to know them and connect on their level. In the beginning, I was really conscious that I wanted to build a really cool friendship with them. So I don't know how much money I've spent on those kids, trying to be that really cool stepmom. I never wanted to be the evil stepmom. I always wanted to be a really cool stepmom. And in the beginning, I would just, okay, well, we'll buy a ticket to go and do this, or we'll go and do this, or, you know, I would always say yes if I could. That then bit me in the bottom later on when it came to the, oh, you're living with Dad now and you're starting to parent us and you're starting to say no. That's where life got really tough.
Yeah, and it's difficult, isn't it? Because everybody goes into it with positive intent. Like, nobody wants to be the wicked stepmother. And, you know, you can read a lot of the books that will be, as you say, saying, oh, you know, be their friend, don't be their parent, don't discipline too early, which all makes sense. But then, as you say, you get to the point of, well, I can't say yes all the time. And do you know what? You're living in my home, albeit my home with your father, but it's still my home. I can't have you, I don't know, leaving your breakfast cereal all over the worktop, or leaving your muddy football boots in the hall and not picking them away, whatever it might be. So how did that pan out then when you started to say no?
It was really hard. I think that there was this turning point for me. I vividly remember, so my husband volunteers, and every Monday night he's usually out. So there was this one Monday night where he'd gone out, and it was only the second time I'd ever spent time alone with the boys, looking after them, trying to do the evening stuff. So cooking dinner, trying to, you know, get people to do homework, trying to shower people, do whatever. And I thought I was completely under control. And I was cooking dinner, and I had the news on in the background, and all of a sudden I hear this, I've done poos. And I was just like, oh my gosh, what did I just hear? And then I heard it again. And so I turned everything on the stove off because I was freaked out that I was going to boil something over. I went into the bathroom and I saw one of the twins in the downward dog position with his bottom facing me. And I was just like, oh my gosh, this is the moment. What on earth is going on? And that's when everything in the house exploded. There was an argument with the other two. You know, I've got to deal with a child that, you know, needs his bottom wiped. I'm trying to cook dinner, and everything just absolutely exploded. And I I messaged my husband. I said, I don't think I can do this. He said, what's wrong? And I said, well, one of the twins done poos for a starter. He said to me, I remember it vividly, oh, do you want me to come home? And it was that moment of, no, I can do this, but, I don't want to be this weak person, but I've got to start changing my approach now. It's definitely taken time for me to figure out what my parenting style is. And I don't think I've found it yet. I've gone from being the grumpy, I'm going to put you in timeout, I'm going to take away a treat. I've yelled, I've cried, I've just been incredibly upset because it's so hard when you're trying to get through to three children at times and you don't feel like they respect you enough to listen to what you're saying. But yeah, I think I'm finally starting to figure out what my version of parenting is, but it's not easy.
It's not. And to go from no children to three children all of a sudden, and three children who've already been partially raised without you in their life, it's like dropping you into hot lava almost, because it's all happening and you haven't had a role in constructing how you want it to happen. So you can't expect somebody to be able to just manage that.
Yeah, totally. And on the flip side, the thing that I come back to in my mind is that these kids did not ask for me to be in their lives. So there has to be some give and take from both sides. I have to ask them to learn to respect me and appreciate my way of being. But I also have to appreciate that they didn't ask for me. And I can only hope that one day they look back and they go, well, she came into our lives and she did some pretty cool stuff with us and she's okay. Yeah. Hopefully, fingers crossed they do that one day.
In those early years when they were kind of finding their feet with you, and you kind of said there were times when you shouted, times when you cried, times when this, that, and the other, how did they respond to your differing approaches?
I think the approach that's probably had the most impact is actually crying. With the twins, there's been this marked change. I had this a few months ago, and this is, how recent it is. A few months ago, I was so exhausted from everything that we have to go through week on, week off with my oldest stepson and the challenges of, a busy work life and a busy home life, that I was absolutely exhausted and I burst into tears one night and I just said to my husband, and unfortunately the twins heard me, and I said, I just feel like I'm not being respected. I never even get a thank you for everything that I try and do. I was probably an absolute mess. Unfortunately, they heard me and I felt terrible that I was putting my emotions so raw on the table for the whole house to hear, but I was just so exhausted from not feeling any love or respect. And I think there's been this real change that I do think that they are trying to show that what I do for them is really appreciated. They hug me all the time now. They thank me for all the little things that I do, which, it might only be packing a little bit of chocolate into their lunch and having a secret with their dad, that their dad doesn't know. But it's all those little things that has been a marked change. Prior to that, the other ways of working, the time out, and that it just wasn't working. This was literally a few months ago. There's probably a bit of them getting used to me, them starting to mature, but also them just seeing me absolutely distraught.
Yeah, and I do think showing that vulnerability is okay. Even with my bio kids, they're little and I've burst into tears before on them because I'm just so frustrated because they won't listen. I don't know, like if I'm really hormonal and I'm really tired and I haven't had a chance to eat anything and I've got shitloads of stuff going on in my job, I've got shitloads of stuff going on in my step world, and I have burst into tears in front of my little kids because I'm just so, I don't want to shout, but it's just sometimes gets too much. And I think if you're not putting all your adult problems onto them, which clearly you weren't, it's okay to show that you're upset and hurt. And it's okay to say, I wish I would get a thank you for that. It's okay. And it seems that when we show a bit of vulnerability, I know with mine, they'll be like, oh, okay, sorry. And you become more human rather than just this sort of shouty person going around going, put your shoes on, tidy up, do this, do that.
Yeah, I definitely think that's what's happened. It's almost like when you do have to have these moments of put your shoes on, get your lunchbox packed, do this, do that. There seems to be a little bit more of an appreciation about why we're pushing for those things to happen, because then we can do the cool stuff that you want to do. Yeah, it's taken a while to get to that place. And I don't know whether or not I should have tried a different approach, tried to have a conversation with them about it rather than just getting so frustrated that I launched into this is what's going to happen. Yeah, hindsight's a wonderful thing. And
100%.
podcasts like this are great because you hear other people's experiences, but there aren't that many books on step parenting. Every step parent situation is so different that you can't really build your situation based on somebody else's because it just looks so different.
When I found myself in a really tricky spot a couple of years into being a stepmom, I just did this huge kind of Amazon order. I'm sure the person packing it up was like, whoa, this woman wants to learn some stuff. But, the only book that sort of resonated, that felt like it was written for real people, was Stepmonster, as you say. I think if anybody's listening and hasn't got it, go and order it, because and I've spoken to Wednesday Martin a few times. I love her. I think she's going to come on the show, actually. She is so human about it. And I've said to her, like, possibly she saved my relationship. Me and my husband, then my partner, both read the book. And he was like, okay, yeah, I see what's going on. I see what's happening to me. Yeah, if anyone hasn't got that book and needs a little bit of reality and likes the approach in this podcast, I think you would like that book.
My husband hasn't read it, but I would read extracts to him. And one night he said to me, so is there any hope for us? And I said to him, well, I think there is, because I can see what's going on now. And I can understand why I'm feeling like this and why it's so tough for me. So now that I understand, I feel like I'm not going so mad, because I felt like I was absolutely losing the plot most of the time.
It's so difficult. And you mentioned when you first got in touch with me, the added situation around your older stepson being neurodiverse. And you just referenced then how it's taken a few years to get to where you are. So do you mind sharing a bit about kind of that middle bit with us?
Yeah, so I reached out to you because I just this is the bit that I am is struggling with as a stepmom. I mean, I struggle every day. I mean, stepmumming is not easy, but we are on a journey with my older stepson. I think hormones are kicking in, which never helps. So he will have huge meltdowns, and these meltdowns can go for a couple of hours. You can have your name being screamed at you over and over, and it's hard because it's almost like you have to unlock Pandora's box, and you've just got to say the right word to be able to unclick whatever is going on in his brain to get back to some sort of normalcy. We walk around on eggshells a lot of the time. Our health system over here in New Zealand, I don't know what it's like in the UK, but our health system here in New Zealand is not really geared for kids with disabilities of any form. So when you add in an invisible disability like child that's neurodiverse, the education system, the health system, it just becomes really hard. When I met my older stepson, you could tell that he was a bit different because he was so into certain things. Over time, it started to amplify the meltdowns, the way he treats his brothers at times. I totally get that there is an element of he's just being a boy. But then when you have a conversation with him and he doesn't understand why the pain that he's caused his brother, in his mind might be an accident, but his brother's not seeing it that way. And then you're giving attention to the brother when you're trying to console the brother, and he's the one that's wanting attention. And it's just growing and growing and growing and growing. And so following COVID, I think it became much harder. He didn't really want to engage in school as much. Some days it is hard to get him out of the house to go to school. And yeah, it creates this level of tension that you just can't, I can't describe it. It makes being a stepmom even harder. Stepmom life is a challenge to begin with. So, you're trying to juggle your life, what your life used to be, or what your life is now, what your life is with the kids, and then you throw in this added tension of trying to help a child who is trying to understand what the world is for them, and it becomes horrid at times. I'm ashamed to say that there have been days where I've just wanted to walk out. Yeah. Sorry.
Don't be sorry. Do you want to take a break?
It's okay. That's okay. Now, in saying all of this, I love my older stepson more than I can describe. He, we have had some amazing, amazing times together. So I think the tears come from being helpless to be able to help him, and seeing the pain that unfortunately happens because we don't have all the supports, we don't have all the tools right now to be able to help him. We are thankfully starting to get those, very, very slowly starting to get those, but it takes a long time, and yeah, it just adds this layer of complexity that is really hard to explain. When he's with us, it's gotten to a point where I'm almost just a flatmate in those weeks, just because he is very dependent on his father when he's with us. And so if I try and have a conversation or step into a conversation, it can create just a blow up instantly. For some reason, when I talk, I don't know if it's just me being very, very sensitive, but when I talk, there seems to be more blow ups. So when he's here, I'm starting to pull back a lot more, which is hard because I want to keep building that relationship with him, but also I want to, I have a marriage that I need to look after. So yeah.
It's a lot.
Yeah. It's funny. His dad said to me yesterday he'd had a meeting with his bio mum and a support person to try and start getting some supports in place. Apparently, he's moaned to her about the fact that I try and get him to do things, and she actually said to him, she doesn't have to be there. She shows that she loves you because she doesn't have to be there. Lots of other people wouldn't put up with this kind of behavior. So I thought that was a very cool moment.
Yeah. I feel that emotion from being in the moment with you. And I guess almost hearing that from his mom, it's like that extra validation of, you know what, she's doing a good job.
Yeah, it's funny because it's almost full circle, isn't it? From that first moment that I met her, where it was hard to hearing that she'd said that, it was like, oh, okay, well, I am. She is appreciating that I am trying really hard in a really, really hard circumstances. Yeah, I'll take that at the light at the end of the tunnel.
Yeah, and having, I have some friends who have biological children with various neurodiverse needs, and they will say a lot of the same things that you're saying. But when you're a stepmom, there's that extra layer of questioning. So their bio mum probably feels a lot of the same things towards this complex situation as you, and a lot of the guilt about having some of those feelings, but it doesn't have that added layer of complexity. And all the while you've got the voice in the back of your head going, love them as much as I do, love them as much as I do.
Exactly. And exactly right. And I've had so many conversations with my husband. He said to me, I can't do this today, I can't be here. So I totally get that there will be bio parents out there who feel this exactly the same way in these situations. It's really hard. But when you're a stepmom, there's almost this blame happens. So when we have one of these meltdowns, I often blame myself for it because I might have said the wrong thing. We'll come home after school. My oldest stepson will say something that upsets one of his brothers. And so my natural defense is to come in and support the stepbrother. And then that creates an absolute explosion. And all I want him to do is just apologize. But unfortunately, in his world, that's not the fix for it. He can't apologize to his brother. He has to litigate it with me, which is fine. But that's another hour of a meltdown. It chips away at you so that you're not as emotionally resilient or mentally resilient or even physically resilient. And so when you've got the added layer of being a stepmom in there, it just, it's really hard.
What's helped you keep strong during this time?
I work a lot. Work is almost, I've got a really busy job and I love dealing with the issues at my work, but probably that takes my mind off things, just being out of the home, but also doing things for me. I have my dog, so I'll go and take her for a walk every night. And then I drum. I started learning the drums a couple of years ago.
Cool.
So if there's it's like going to church for me. I'm not a religious person, but it's like going to church. Every Tuesday night, I get in the car. I've got a 20-minute trip. I put music on that gets me amped up. I go and do my drum lesson, and then I've got my music that I come home to. And it's almost like if I don't go to drums, then it's you can tell when I haven't been to drums for a couple of weeks, because I do dip downhill. So probably my two tips: if you've always wanted to do something that you think, oh gosh, I can't do that, I'm getting too old, just do it. It doesn't matter how old you are. I started learning the drums at 39. Just go out there and take some time for yourself. It's actually okay to do that. I think we feel this responsibility that we have to be at home all the time. We have to be, I bake every Sunday afternoon because I want to be a responsible step parent. And I feel this responsibility as a step parent, but then I've realized that actually that's not viable to be like that all the time. You can be a responsible step parent by taking yourself out of the situation.
100%. And it always feels like biological mums are encouraged to do things that stepmums have in the past been judged for. And I feel like there's a turn. I feel like we're recognizing this. But I was reflecting when you were talking earlier about you should have known what was ahead of you, but you didn't. And I was thinking, like, maybe it's because not that many people talk about it. So you hear bio mums talking about how hard it is having a baby, how your body changes after you've had a baby, how your mental health changes after you've had a baby, how your career changes, like all those things. And there's a lot of support out there. So yes, when you have a baby, you don't know everything, but you've got some idea that your sleep's going to be shot to shit and that your body's going to fall apart for a bit and like all that sort of stuff. But because nobody talks openly about being a stepmom because of all the cultural and historical stuff that comes with it, when you go into it and you're like, oh, I'm feeling a bit resentful of, I don't know, I'm making this up, my whole life has suddenly changed because I have to plan my schedule around kids, you feel like you're the bad person. But actually, I bet if you asked 100 stepmoms out there, have you ever felt resentful? 99% of them would say yes, at least.
I really hope that 99% of them have said yes, they do feel resentful, because I certainly have. It is it's hard. You're completely right. There's all the books of, okay, you're 39 weeks pregnant, this is what's happening now, but there's no, this is day one of you being a step parent, this is what it's going to be like, this is what you need to do when you hear I've done poos. Like, there was none of that. I wish there was.
And I love your tip about go and do that thing, whatever your age, go and do that hobby. And, I'm in my 40s and I have to say, like, I'm starting to explore things that I've wanted to do for years, but never had the time to or the chance to, or always felt guilty for. And it's only now I'm kind of thinking like, well, hang on, these kids, they're not going to be here forever. These kids are going to move on and have their own lives. And you don't want to lose yourself along the way. And that's, I think, so much harder when you're a stepmom, because you have a different kind of narrative in your mind, a different kind of voice talking to you about the things that you should do, the judgments in society that are out there. So I think that's a super helpful tip. I'm interested as well, have you got any advice for other step parents who are dealing with a neurodiverse situation?
Do it your way. And I have to preface this. My husband has taken a long time to kind of come on my journey with me, because he wants me to be this 150% mum, because he knows that I want to be that mum. When I first said to him, I think I have to step back from being so involved with my older stepson, he was really not resentful, but shocked, and he didn't want me to step away. But over time, I think he's kind of come around to, this is what she needs to do for her own well-being, for her to keep the house calm. You know, I've looked at this house so many times. I've tried to figure out what's gone on so many times that it's almost me researching my own world and figuring out, okay, this is what I need to do. This is the instruction guide for me right now. So I think just do it your way. Read up on everything that you possibly can, but there's a quote out there that if you've met one autistic person, you've met one autistic person. And it's so true, because we're all different across the world, but you can read all the bullet points of, well, this tends to be the symptoms or the diagnoses or whatever for an autistic person or for someone with ADHD. But when you start to mix, especially the different elements of being neurodiverse, it makes it much harder. So you can't just, it's not a cookie cutter. You can't just cookie cutter this approach. So that's why I say do it your way, because you know your stepchild, you know yourself, you know your husband or your partner, and you've just got to make it work until you can get some supports around you.
Yeah, and I really appreciate you reaching out, because I've had a lot of women get in touch with me saying, would you consider doing an episode on this topic? And my answer is always yes. I just need the person who's prepared to come and have the conversation. So I'm really, really grateful to you. And I'm sure I'm going to get people writing in when they hear this. I'm just wondering, maybe we'll set up a space on the forum for this kind of topic in particular, because it can be a totally different journey for everybody, as you say.
Yeah, we were on a parenting course for parents with teens who are neurodiverse recently, and there were 6 different parents on the call, and they were just all so different. Our journeys were so different, and there were similarities there. The similarities of trying to figure out how to explain things to your neurodiverse child, but really the similarities that tend to be from our neurotypical perspective rather than the neurodiverse child's perspective. So yeah, setting up a forum and just getting people to talk about this stuff is so valuable. It really is.
Another area I'm really interested in just touching on is you talked about how you, apart from every other Friday night, you always have some of the children with you. So how does that work from moving kind of from, you know, you've almost got 3 different environments going on there. The small amount where there's no kids, then one space where you're with your teen stepson, and then you've got the twins. So how does that pan out for you?
We've gotten to such a routine now that you just kind of know, okay, well, the changeover happens on a Monday. So we'll have the twins go to school on Monday, and then we'll have my older stepson come home on the Monday afternoon. And it's not like we don't see all the children throughout the week. So we each take a turn at looking after them one afternoon a week. And then the twins both have football. So you're always seeing a combination of them. It's just become routine. And your brain almost switches. I noticed that there is a switch between the week that we have the twins versus the week that I have my oldest stepson. I mean, I think I said before, we do walk on eggshells a lot more with him. Hopefully not forever. Hopefully we're able to find some supports that mean that we can have a much more relaxed house. But you just mentally shift. The week that we have him is the week that we have our Friday night off. So it's almost like you kind of get just this little break in between. And we often have to figure out, okay, are we too exhausted to actually go out and do anything? Or should we take this time and actually be real adults and go out and do dinner or whatever that looks like? It's quite tiring, but you do get into this routine of just, like all step families, you get into your routine of, okay, well, we have this child or we don't have this child. So you get used to it.
Yeah. What are your hopes for the future of your family?
I really hope for my oldest stepchild that we're able to get him the supports that he needs to just understand that the world is kind of not set up for neurodiverse people. In the ideal world, we would start to see more strategies and more ways of being that are more accepting of all differences, but we're just not there yet. So I hope that his school, last year he changes school and that becomes more settling for him, and as in home life we can start to find some strategies together that help us build that relationship back up that we had in the beginning, because we had such a cool relationship in the beginning. And for my younger stepchildren, I hope that they have a hard time because of everything that goes on in the house with their brother. So I hope that once things settle with him, we can have more of not a normal family, but just a calm family. I don't think we'll ever be a normal family, but just more calm and happy times. Yeah.
That word calm comes up a lot. Like I remember just thinking, my family doesn't have to be like happy, singing, dancing, perfect, picture perfect family, but it's that calmness, it's that peace. I always felt like I just want contentment. Yeah. It doesn't have to be wonderful, just calm contentment.
Yeah, I do not want the Von Trapp family singers. I do not need that. But what I do want is just being able to go out together and just having a really nice time, and knowing that after half an hour, there's not going to be some sort of chaos that ensues that makes life harder and makes us go, I wish we hadn't done this. That's the short-term goal anyway.
Thank you so much for getting in touch and for being our first stepmom from New Zealand on the podcast. Hopefully not the last. I'm sure there'll be lots of women, whether they have a neurodiverse stepchild or any other situation, who will have taken a lot from the conversation. So thank you so much for getting in touch. Stay in touch and we'll hopefully hear from you again soon.
Awesome. Thank you so much. I've really enjoyed this.
All right, thank you so much for trusting me with your story. It was really gorgeous to talk to you, and I felt pretty emotional at points. I'm sure people listening did as well. I've set up a space on the forum for those of you who want to connect with others on the subject of neurodiverse stepchildren, so do head there if you need support. You'll also find plenty more tailored support on the website www.stepmumspace.com, including the Stepmum Space workshop, one-to-one coaching, or my really popular couples coaching program. You can also reach me there via email through the site or on the socials at Stepmumspace with any questions. If you've enjoyed this episode, please do rate or review wherever you get your podcasts. It really helps others find us. And if you've got a story you'd like to share, please get in touch via the website stepmumspace.com or on the socials at Stepmumspace. I'll be back next week with another new story. See you next time.